It was another day in comic book YouTube land. This once bright community had been turned upside down by all the failed spec, dirty flippers, and gang of exclusive variants coming out week to week. That FUD cast a shadow so large on the space, you could no longer tell day from night. The negativity was strong and even more curious. Not even the Silver Age keys in my collection could bring me the same joy they once did. Maybe the market downturn had simply soured my experience. Perhaps this was just a temporary feeling. Or maybe I was addicted to another. I couldn't stop thinking about her. The oversized format, those shock value aesthetics, those bright colors that pop so hard they can make a man feel like a kid again. Of course, I was talking about my pre-code horror book, Chamber of Chills 21. Ever since she came into my collection, things just haven't been the same. I was hooked. Maybe it was that wicked smile, long trade dress, or that beautiful white skull that in the right light could brighten up the darkest corners of this hobby. Whatever it was, I knew I needed more. And so I waited, patiently, waited to hear the sound all comic collectors can never hear enough of. The mailman dropping off packages. Call it a new obsession, call it a fixation, but whatever you do, don't call it a fad, because the significance of these books is that this time, Census says, I get to determine the price. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagglehos. And in this video, I got two pre-code horror books to unbox with you guys here today, as you probably could tell from my intro. I know what y'all are thinking. Oh, here we go. Swagglehos is totally addicted to buying PCH books. Well, guess what, dear viewer? You're probably right. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the, Halloween spirit in me that's driving me to pick up some of these books. Maybe I feel like I'm just being festive, here on the channel. Or maybe it's because now it's very, very interesting to analyze the golden age market, specifically that of pre-code horror, and see how well a lot of these books are performing. So in this video, I'm going to do the unboxing. We're going to talk about that later on in the video, talk about, the census and how that affects things, and see if we can kind of, make any conclusions about where PCH books are going to go from here on out. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel doing those things. I would appreciate it. But let us get into this video here today. Of course, I gotta undo this box right here. I always say undo this box. Why do I always say that? I don't know. I gotta open up the box. This one, as you guys can see, was from Torpedo Comics. Actually, a great comic book store, great online store. They have a tremendous selection of pre-code horror books, and I was actually able to pick this one up from their store, so I'm very, very excited to open this one. Now, this particular book right here isn't necessarily a key horror book or a key pre-code horror book. It just happened to be one that I personally really, really liked, and I just was a big fan of the art, and that's one of the cool things I think there is about pre-code horror books right here. The art, the aesthetics, the history. I think that is, part of what makes them exciting to grab in terms of, collectors out there in the market. I mean, obviously with the superhero books, there's going to be pop cultural events that is going to kind of increase that demand for those particular books. But with a lot of the golden age stuff and these pre-code horror things, I mean, sure, if, they decide to redo a EC anthology show, then there might be some spec towards that. But for the most part, it's really just about, the aesthetics, the art, and that's what people like about this one. But this first one I want to show you guys is this amazing cover done by Ghastly, otherwise known as Graham Angles. This one right here is Haunt of Fear number 25. Just a beautiful cover. I mean, I realize that, these types of books, these types of covers aren't necessarily the ones that are, the ones that the market likes to spec on. It's not necessarily, a damsel in distress. It's not a skull cover. It's not necessarily a gruesome image, so to speak. But what I like about it is it just, it paints a picture for me. It tells me a story, kind of like what I was trying to show you guys at the beginning of this video. I just love the idea of this. I don't know if he's a private investigator, if he's a detective, whatever the case may be. He's knocking on that, big chamber door going into that mansion. It just kind of gets my mind, really, really moving. It just makes me think about, what is in there. I think about actually the original mansion from Tales from the Crypt. I mean, the door just kind of evokes that out of me. And also, I just happen to love purple. I don't know what it is. Anytime you get the purple trade dress, I am going to be a fan of that particular book. And this one is really, really cool. I mean, Graham Engels, I feel like, is a artist who is, kind of on the second wave of the initial EC artists. Of course, when EC was coming out, it was like Feldstein, it was Johnny Craig, artists like that. And then later on, it would be picked up by sort of like Jack Davis, and Graham Engels would kind of be like a transitionary person as well. And I think that he has done a lot of really awesome covers as well. And this one is a really, really cool book, in my opinion. Of course, it's really nice with Torpedo. They always put the grade right there on the back. They graded this at a 2.0. They said that the centerfold was detached, which to me is something that normally I would not like to do that in terms of like Silver Age books, or especially Bronze Age books or newer books. But when it comes to Golden Age, and having some of those detachments, it really doesn't bother me so much, because kind of like what I was inferring at the beginning of this video, when it comes to the census, that's really one of the things I think is so interesting about the Golden Age, is that you don't have the options to pick the book that doesn't have detachments. The sellers get to determine everything in terms of the price, when they want to release it, and this is why like a lot of the books that are restored or qualified or have detachments are still desired in the market, because maybe not necessarily this book, although all of the EC books are hard to find. There are some books that only go up for sale once a year or maybe twice a year, and if there are 3 people that really, really want those books, well, they're going to enter that sort of bidding war throughout the year in order to get their hands on it. Not to mention there's so many other factors where it's like, just because 2 books go on sale that year doesn't mean that they're going to be in the grade range that you can actually afford. Like, there are a lot of books that I've personally wanted or have been going after for pre-code horror books, but sometimes the 9.0 will go on sale, and it's like, well, I personally don't have the budget for the 9.0. I would rather buy the 3.0 or the 4.0 or whatever the case may be. And so that's kind of one of the interesting factors into this. And so with this book right here, as far as I could tell, with all the online stores, everyone that has been selling it, at the time in which I purchased it, there was only one place that I could actually find this book being sold online, and that was through Torpedo Comics. And speaking of Torpedo Comics, let's take a moment to talk about them as the sponsor of this video. Now, if you guys don't know, Torpedo Comics is one of the biggest and best comic book stores on the West Coast. They have locations in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Irvine. They do incredible sales online. They have claim sales all the time on their Instagram, and they have some of the best selections on their online store, including pre-code horror books. You can go on their website, search all the different things that you want, and they conveniently have these tags that you can utilize to narrow down your search. So if you're out there looking for pre-code horror books, you can hit that 10-cent cover button and scroll through to find some of the best array and collection of Golden Age pre-code horror books on sale through their store. And if you use my promo code SWAGGLEHOSS, you'll be able to save 10% on all of your purchases. So definitely go check out Torpedo Comics, and thank you for sponsoring this video. I was able to pick up this book right here from them and use my own promo code. So instead of me paying the $200 that it would cost for me to acquire this book that they had it listed at, I was actually able to save 10% and pay $180. But I did mention that I have another unboxing to do, so let's kind of get right into it. Another pre-code horror book that I am adding to the collection. Now, for me, I really am enjoying, kind of seeing what books are out there for me. Again, I have a very, very small, short list of books that I'm interested in. Not like, obsessed with it. There's still tons of Marvel Silver Age books that I want to grab for myself, but I for sure am definitely most interested in the titles like Chamber Chills, and specifically the EC titles as well. And when I saw this book online being sold, this was actually, I had definitely been keeping my eye out for this particular book, but it's been a while since I've actually seen it. And when I saw it go online, I couldn't hit buy it now fast enough, and I was able to pick up this CBCS 2.0 Vault of Horror number 17. Just the very, very cool werewolf cover right there, done by Johnny Craig. I absolutely love this book right here. I love just the look of it. Johnny Craig, I think, is probably one of my favorite pre-code horror artists. I mean, I would put him up there with, Lee Elias. I would say Feldstein is incredible, and Johnny Craig as well. And this is just a very, very cool book. I mean, I was able to also find this one for $200, which in my opinion was a very good price, because I feel like there probably, would have been other people out there that had they seen this go up online, instantly they would have bought it at that particular price range. And I am super happy to add this to my collection. Definitely this book got knocked because of the back. You can see right here, definitely a lot of water damage up here. There's like some molding going on and things like that. So, pretty ugly on the back, but, as far as the front is concerned, not too bad overall. Very, very nice. I mean, it does have the water stain going across the horror right there. You can definitely see it, but, aesthetically, it almost actually works for the, the cover itself. But this is definitely a very, very cool one. Vault of Horror, I feel like, has the most notoriety. Ironically, Tales from the Crypt, I think, is the biggest name, but it felt like Vault of Horror was maybe their sort of main title when they were originally kind of launching this stuff. Although Haunt of Fear also was one of the original ones as well. So, those three, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, Haunt of Fear, but it does feel like maybe there are more celebrated keys that came out of the Vaulted Horror run specifically, which makes that one pretty cool overall. But before I kind of wrap up the video and kind of, put these books on my wall, I did want to talk a little bit about, the census and the market of pre-code horror and Golden Age. And I felt like it would sort of be kind of an important thing to, just discuss with you guys about the census and why that plays such a big role in being able to protect the values of these particular books. I mean, here's the book I picked up right here, Haunt of Fear number 25. Obviously, again, not a super key, not a mega key by any stretch of the imagination, but you can see right here, as far as universal copies that are graded, there's only 53. Now, granted, there's a lot of raw books out there. I'm sure this is not necessarily one that people are slabbing all the time. So I'm sure that that number could go up if, for whatever reason, all of a sudden people decided that this was the book they needed to get their hands on. But, one of the things I want to point out to you guys is just look at here, the census. There's only been 2 sales in the entirety of 2022. And then if you go back to 2021, there were a handful. There were maybe 6 sales of this book overall. And this is one of those real interesting things when we talk about price. I mentioned that I was able to get mine for $180 at a discount, but somebody here paid $213 for a 3.0, which, is basically a grade point above the one that I got at the 2.0 range. But because of the census, I'm not in a position where I'm going to be able to find this book at, the, appropriate value range. Like the one copy that I was able to find online at the time was the one copy that I was able to find online at the time. Similarly to this one right here, Vault of Horror number 17, I found this one for $200 online, and it was the only copy that you could actually see, or at least at the time in which I bought it, it was the only copy that I could actually find out there. This one as well has 56 universal copies on the census. You can see the last couple sales for this one. A 7.0 was $1,200. You see a 4.0 went for $400. So, that was a pretty good pickup as well. But here in 2022, there's only been one at least graded sale online for this particular book. And if you were to at least go, on eBay or whatever the case is at the time of recording this video, you would have a hard time being able to find this book online. I think that there were maybe a couple raw sales that happened like a few months back, but that's really one of the interesting things about this entire market is that you are at the whim of the seller. It is not easy to find these books, and that actually is part of the fun of it as well because, the hunt is so thrilling. Now, just really quickly to wrap up this video, obviously we got to talk about Crime Suspense Stories number 22. This is like the one of the biggest pre-code horror books right here, and at the time of recording this video, this seems to be the one that the market is absolutely chasing. Here in 2022, you can see that there actually are a lot of sales for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we can go on to pages. So, about a baker's dozen or so. The last sale for a 4.5 went for $8,400. And that's something that I think is really interesting too, is that, you're kind of starting to see like if certain books are getting really, really hot out there in the market, obviously there's going to be an influx of inventory because anyone who's had this book for a very, very long time is going to try to capitalize on the hype of it and at least make that equity that they've instantly gained on that book. But generally speaking, once those books and those sellers put it out there into the market and there's a big turnover of collectors and now there's new holders of the book that have been established, what inevitably is going to happen is that that's now going to protect the floor value for that particular book. And that's one of the things that is so interesting about Golden Age and pre-code horror. It's not to say that I think that these books are immune to recession. If everyone had to liquidate today, I'm not necessarily sure that you could always get the price that, the book is valued at. But generally speaking, because there's so few of them out there in the market, you only need one person who really wants the book at that fair market value or above fair market value. Where if you have a book in the Bronze Age that has a census of 10,000, it's going to be hard for you to command the top value price when someone else could go to the next seller and be able to pick it up for half the price that you have it listed at. So that is all I have for this video. That was me kind of doing my unboxing for these pre-code horror books that I'm now adding to the collection. We'll see what happens. You know, maybe I'm just in the spirit of Halloween. There's definitely a few other horror books that I would really like. I find myself very, very much attracted to the EC titles specifically. Anyways, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed my little intro at the beginning. And if you did enjoy that, maybe you could consider checking out my pre-launch Kickstarter page in the description. I have a comic book that is based kind of in the film noir Lovecraftian pulp adventure aesthetic. And if you kind of like that vibe, you might like my comic book as well. That's all I got for this video. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content. I will see you in the next one.